welcome to day 1 of 31 days of Halloween, where I upload every single day from now until Halloween, which is 31 videos back to back, and to be quite honest with you, my absolute favorite time of the year. Today we're going to be discussing a case that is so fascinating to me, you guys. Like, you have no idea how many hours I've spent watching video after video on this and reading up on this as much as I possibly could. So I am so excited to be bringing here on my channel for day 1 of 31 Days of Halloween, the case of the Bell Witch haunting. Before I get into today's video though, I have 2 very exciting things I would like to share with you guys. The very first being that I have officially dropped 31 Days of Halloween 2019 t-shirts that say my Halloween lasts 31 days. I will have a link at the very top of my description. Make sure you guys purchase your 31 Days of Halloween 2019 t-shirt and wear it while you watch these videos, because trust me, I am traveling to some really spooky places and I am taking my content to the next level this year. The second thing that I want to announce is that in every single video from now until Halloween, I will have a secret letter somewhere in the video that will form words. When a new letter is the start of a new word, I will tell you guys new word. And if you tune in to every single video, piece together all of the words, put them in order, and comment it on my very last video, you will enter for a chance to win an opportunity to go ghost hunting with me and meet me in person. However, the only rule to entering is that if you comment what the word is or you spoil it before the 31st video, you will be disqualified from the contest. So no spoilers, just finding the letter in each video. But without further ado, let's get this started. I'm so excited. It's October. I have my spooky decor up and it is thundering today. So it feels like the perfect day to commence this, and I cannot wait to spend the next 31 days here with you guys every single day. So the case of the Bell Witch haunting is a very interesting case where an entity tormented a family, and the family could actually hear the entity speaking, the Bell Witch speaking, even though they would never see it. And it all starts with a man named John Bell, who would marry a woman named Lucy Williams in 1782. The Bells would actually purchase a farm in Edgecombe County and begin amassing great wealth and influence in the area. In 1804, John and Lucy Bell would build a house and start a farm on a large property located on the Red River in Robertson County, Tennessee. They would actually live there with their 9 children, and it's actually thought that the home was built on top of Native American burial grounds, which will come into play later in the story, as I'm sure you can imagine, but it's very important to note. Now, another thing that is thought to have happened in 1816, which may also be important later on in this story, is that John was thought to have purchased a slave girl from a man named Benjamin Batts, which would be Kate Batts's brother-in-law. Yeah. It's thought that Benjamin actually changed his mind about selling the slave girl, but John actually tried to cheat it and sell her back to Benjamin in order to turn a profit from the purchase. Benjamin actually filed a lawsuit against John, who would later be even kicked out of the Baptist church for that. But this again is something that will come more into play later in the story. But everything would take a very dark, sinister, and nearly unbelievable turn in 1817. Some members of the family started to see what looked like a very strange animal outside of the property. It almost looked like what they described as like a large dog with a rabbit-looking face, if that makes any sense at all. This was all followed by really strange knocking sounds outside of the house that would then turn to knocking sounds up on the roof, and then turn to almost like chain-like sounds and banging sounds, until eventually these sounds made their way into the family home. Things then progressed very quickly. The children's blankets would be ripped off of them in the night. The children would also report seeing strange lights out in the field that almost looked like candles. And eventually, and unfortunately, the children would begin screaming in the night and during the day, and the parents would find that the children had been hit by like unseen hands. So whatever this was starting to become violent. It almost seemed as though whatever this entity was feeding off of fear and growing stronger off of fear. And though they'd never see the entity, they would eventually begin hearing the entity, first as whispers, but then turning into a full-on voice. It was said that the entity loved to talk and would talk quite frequently. In fact, something that I found really interesting in doing my research on this case was that the entity wasn't always sinister. In fact, sometimes the entity would crack jokes and conversate, but they would never see it. They would just hear it. The Bell Witch was a sinister entity that would torture the family from 1817 to 1821. So you're probably wondering, why on earth was this Bell Witch visiting the family? Why was the family enduring this torture from the Bell Witch? And it seemed as though there were two specific motives. The first one being the most prominent, and that was the Bell Witch wanted to kill John Bell. Anytime the entity was asked why it was haunting the home, why them, why was this going on, it would respond with the fact that it wanted to kill John Bell. And I just want to say, could you guys even imagine having never seen an entity but continuously hearing it talk? I can't even fathom that, but let's continue the story. The second reason that it was believed the Bell Witch was there was to stop their daughter Betsy from marrying the love of her life, Joshua Gardner. During the first year of the haunting in 1817, the family tried their best to kind of keep this on the hush. They didn't want anybody to know about the haunting. In fact, they really wanted to keep it to themselves. But like I said, the entity was growing stronger, becoming more and more violent. They would be slapped and hit from these unseen hands, and these unseen hands would leave bruises even. The children would be struck, punched, pinched, and have their hair pulled, and it was just getting to a point of real torment. As I'm sure you can imagine, word got around very quickly about the Bell Witch, and many were fearful, while others were just curious about the whole entire thing. I mean, it sounds unbelievable to think that there's this voice coming through and this entity inflicting pain and bruises and torment onto a family. So needless to say, word was spreading fast. The entity, still growing stronger, began to identify itself as Kate. And one thing that I found interesting about this case was that the entity actually spoke pretty highly of the mother Lucy. For some reason, the entity had taken a little bit of a liking to Lucy and kind of left her alone and spoke relatively highly of her. The entity also loved to argue scripture with preachers and really had a personality of its own, which is interesting. I've never researched a case like this to date where there's such a personality in an entity that's coming through in a sure voice. In one instance that I knew I had to include, in 1819, General Andrew Jackson and his men visited the Bell family farm to investigate the Bell Witch. And when they reached the property line, when they approached the Bell family property, their horses just stopped, their carriage just stopped, and they were unable to get it to move. It was just completely stopped. And then from the trees, a voice called out saying, "It's okay, General, you can move on now. I'll talk to you tonight." And suddenly their horses were able to move again. And mind you guys, this voice didn't sound like my voice or your voice, like a human voice. In fact, in the beginning, they said that it almost sounded like an old lady and kind of cryy and whiny, but as it got more powerful and stronger, they said it almost sounded like a very deep, low-pitched instrument, I believe is how they described it. So it wasn't really like a human voice. But anyways, the voice came from the trees and then allowed them to move on, and suddenly the horses could move. So Andrew and his men went onto the Bell family property, they pitched their tents, they went inside, they had a great dinner, they had a completely normal night, when one of his men proceeded to say something along the lines of, "Notice how there's been no activity since we came into the house." And he proceeded to say that this was because he had a witch tamer. He had a gun and he had a silver bullet, and that he believed that the entity wouldn't show or manifest itself because then he would shoot it And right as he said that, he got a strong kick to the crotch area and was like shot right out the front door. Then the voice came back again and said, "General, this man is an old fraud. He's no good," and even proceeded to say, "And I'll tell you, you have another fraud in your party, and tomorrow night, I'm gonna call him out." Which, when I heard this story, I was like, that is honest to goodness insane. Like, could you even imagine this guy there sitting saying like, "Oh, I know why it's not manifesting itself. It's because I have this." And then all of a sudden you get like shoved across the room and out the front door. And all of a sudden this voice comes back and says that you're a fraud and no good. Like, this story, you guys, is so astonishing to me. And to think that it really happened is insane. But let's continue. Things get even crazier. The Bell Witch would never let John completely rest. Slowly he began getting sicker and sicker and sicker, until on December 20th, 1820, aged 70 years old, he would pass away. Where this gets even creepier and crazier is that his death was actually ruled death by spirit. Like, it was actually acknowledged that he'd been killed by whatever this entity was. It's believed that he was poisoned by Kate, the Bell Witch, and Kate verbally took complete credit for his death, even attending his funeral and laughing and singing her way through the whole entire thing. So everybody who attended the funeral could hear this voice laughing and singing its way through the whole entire funeral, while taking credit for having done it. Could you imagine attending a funeral where this like unseen force is laughing and singing through the whole entire funeral and taking credit for having killed him? So there are a few different theories as to who the Bell Witch was, what kind of entity it was, why it was there, and just the whole entire case in general. The first theory is obviously one of the earlier things that I mentioned, and that is that the Bell Witch is a spirit of one of the bodies that had been buried there that was disturbed when the house was built. And interestingly enough, to kind of support this theory, is that every time the Bell Witch was asked, or Kate was asked, who it was or why it was there, it would give a different answer, like every single time. Except one time, it answered that it was the spirit of a body that was buried there whose bones had been disturbed. So some people believe that it's just because they disturbed a burial ground and that they brought on this spirit that was not pleased about it. Another theory is that it was Kate Batts, and a lot of people actually believed this theory. In fact, it kind of went back to the fact of the whole selling of the slave girl, and people thought that she was quite eccentric, so maybe she could be a witch. I even heard of some theories where people thought that John had killed Kate and that's why she came back. And some even said that on Kate's deathbed, she said that she would haunt John Bell and his descendants, and they also thought that this would make sense why the entity referred to itself as Kate. But this has been pretty well debunked because John passed away in 1820 and Kate Batts would not pass away until the 1840s. So there's no way that that could have been her. Some people think that this was all an elaborate hoax by a school teacher of Betsy Bell because he was in love with Betsy and wanted to destroy her relationship with Joshua. So he kind of made this whole entire scheme as an elaborate hoax to try to scare Joshua away. Some people believe that he had accomplices and that he staged the whole entire thing, and that's how the Bell Witch haunting came about, but that would not make sense because the blankets being ripped off the bed and the kids being hit by unseen forces that leave bruises doesn't line up with somebody staging it to scare off a boyfriend because he's in love with Betsy. So in 1821, Betsy Bell got engaged to Joshua and she was really excited to marry him in the future. But the Bell Witch demanded that she refuse the proposal and return the ring to him. So in March of 1821, Betsy broke off her engagement out of fear of the Bell Witch. The Bell Witch was very pleased with that having been done. I mean, if you think about it, like I told you earlier, the two main motives were to keep Betsy away from Joshua and to kill off John, both of which were done. So the Bell Witch claimed that it would return in 7 years. In 1824, Betsy actually married that school teacher, which I told you about, and moved to Mississippi to live out her life with her husband and her children. But the Bell Witch did return in 1828, visiting John Bell Jr. It is said that the Bell Witch came for 3 nights. The first night, the Bell Witch talked to John about the past. The second night, the Bell Witch talked to John about the present. And the third night, the Bell Witch talked to John about the future. The Bell Witch told John that it would return in 107 years, putting that to 1935, although to this day, many people believe that the Bell Witch never left that area ever, and that the Bell Witch is still there. Now, whether or not the Bell Witch did return in 1935, nobody knows. There's been some speculation I've seen, like some people say that the Bell Witch did return and there's stories of it, but there's no sure story as to the Bell Witch's return in 1935. Now, a very notable haunted location is the Bell Witch Cave, which is a cave nearby where she is said to reside. And the cave is so spooky, I know because I researched and looked into going there, but it literally said don't bring anything with you, like not a spirit box, not a doll, maybe not even a cell phone that you plan on bringing out with you, because if you bring an item out that you brought in, very bad and terrifying things could happen. However, even though the Bell Witch is said to haunt the Bell Witch Cave, nothing that's happened recently has ever been as serious or documented as the voice that came through and the torment that the Bell family endured. Lucy Butler, a descendant of the Bell family, actually claims she doesn't believe that the Bell Witch is tied to the Bell family farms, but rather follows her family wherever they go. The scene of the haunting has changed. Like I said, it's currently the Bell Witch Cave where she's said to reside, and the original house was demolished in 1843. The land is now used for crops and tobacco and not used for corn as it was back then, so that's also changed. And it's even said that anybody who takes a rock from the property will be cursed. The case has actually inspired Hollywood films like The Blair Witch Hunt and The Bell Witch Haunting, and the legend is still very talked about in Tennessee, and the Bell Witch Cave still remains one of the most haunted places in Tennessee. I don't know about you guys, but this whole entire case fascinated me. I couldn't stop looking into it. It's incredible to think about. A part of me almost wonders if nowadays something like this would even happen, because we have devices where we could capture a voice coming through and communicating. Back then, nobody was able to capture it, but nowadays somebody would be able to capture it. I don't know, you guys. What do you think of the Bell Witch Haunting? I knew I had to share it with you guys. It fascinates me. Even though I've just shared it with you, a part of me still wants to look more into it. Would you want me to go visit the Bell Witch Cave? Let me know in the comments below. And that is it for day 1 of 31 days of Halloween. Today's letter is the letter I. If you made it this far, I love you so much. If you guys are new to my channel or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my videos, make sure you go ahead and click that subscribe button down below, as I am uploading every single day for the month of October, so you don't want to miss out. And please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness, and until next time, I love you guys.